It's midnight and you're watching Nightline with me, Ahmad Hamdan. The top stories. Citizenship law changes. Government must honour ruler's position. Will explain to backbenchers. And targeted subsidies to be implemented in 3 methods next year. Good morning. We begin with this headlining story. The government will explain to its backbenchers the proposed constitutional amendments related to the granting of citizenship. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said this was because the proposed amendments had been presented to the Conference of Rulers.
We will inform them because this was presented to the Majlis Raja-Raja.
Anwar was speaking at a gathering with staff of the Prime Minister's Department, JPM, in Putrajaya on Monday. A few backbenchers, including Ipoh Timur Member of Parliament Howard Lee, had been sharing on social media their unhappiness over the proposed amendments. In the proposed constitutional amendments, the Malaysian government plans to table amendments that would solve the citizenship problems plaguing the overseas-born children of Malaysian women with foreign husbands. In his speech, Anwar also touched on the ongoing Israel-Palestine conflict, where he said that leaders of Muslim countries are to meet on the Gaza war, which has killed more than 9,000 Palestinians.
Kita telah menghubungi pemimpin dunia Arab dan Turki, malah Iran juga, untuk mengadakan perbincangan di kalangan kepala-kepala negara. Keputusan sekarang ini yang kita bincang dengan Muhammad bin Salman, Presiden Erdogan Turki, itu ialah untuk mengadakan dalam tempoh segera, mungkin dalam 1-2 hari ini ditetapkan beberapa tarikh yang boleh mempertemukan pemimpin negara Islam.
Anwar also said that he has proposed that the meeting also include leaders of non-Muslim countries, including Brazil, Ireland, Russia and China, who have spoken on the human rights crisis in Gaza. He said his idea for these countries to be included was because of their approach and stand in defending human rights. And at another function, the Prime Minister said cordial relations between Malaysia and Egypt enable the country's humanitarian aid to be sent to the people of Palestine.
Dan kerja saya bercakap dengan Presiden Abdul Fattah Sisi percepatkan. Alhamdulillah, Malaysia di antara negara yang paling cepat dapat kelulusan pesawat dan juga kesempadan Rafale.
Anwar spoke to the media after officiating the Malaysia Digital Expo 2023 Grand Finale at Malaysia International Trade and Exhibition Centre on Monday. Last Saturday, the 9MWCA cargo plane carrying the first shipment of Malaysian humanitarian aid for Palestine through Ops Ihsan landed safely at El Arish Military Airport in Egypt. 20 tons of assistance were handed over to representatives of the Egyptian Red Crescent Society to be brought into Gaza through the Rafah border crossing. Meanwhile, Anwar reminded the concerned parties in this country not to use the Israel-Palestine conflict to seek political mileage. He said the humanitarian crisis in Gaza should not be used for personal agenda, but should instead be focused on providing aid to the victims of Israel's cruelty.
Saya tidak fikir wajar untuk terlalu dipolitikkan dan cerca maki hamil. Orang mati, rumah, kawasan hancur. Tak usahlah jadi isu politik nak cari 3 poin. Sebab tu saya kata jangan sekali-kali cuba membina mahligai atas pusara. Ya? Jadi satu peringatan kepada semua, buat kerja. Ya, betul, cari derma, cari bantuan.
The proposal for targeted subsidies is expected to be submitted to the Cabinet for approval this month. Economy Minister Rafizi Ramli said there are 3 main methods of implementation being considered.
Sesi libat urus ini akan dilaksanakan setelah keputusan di peringkat jemaah menteri dicapai dan mengikut pelan-pelan pelaksanaan dan garis masa yang ditetapkan untuk mengimbangi risiko inflasi yang bersifat spekulatif.
The methods are determining eligibility based on individual net disposable income with social protection approach or eligibility based on net disposable income through a hybrid approach. Meanwhile, the third method involves both individual and household net disposable income but would be implemented through a subsidy card.
Kalau kita sebut Maznah binti Ismail, saya pergi tak ramai yang kenal pun. Tapi kalau saya sebut Mona Fendi.
Mona Fendi yang masuk muzik-muzik tu kan?
Malam yang dia dibunuh tu memang kita orang pasang kereta dia masuk.
Fail Mahkamah, Rabu 9 malam di TV3 dan stream secara HD ditonton.
Moving on, the performance of the ringgit and other regional currencies continues to be driven by external factors, especially the expectation that US interest rates will remain high for a longer period and geopolitical factors. However, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said the performance of the ringgit is not expected to affect the country's economic growth prospects. He said this when chairing this year's 6th National Economic Action Council meeting on Monday. According to him, the government's efforts towards structural reforms, including initiatives through the new Industrial Master Plan 2030 and the Energy Transition Roadmap, will strengthen Malaysia's competitiveness. This will increase the country's attractiveness to foreign investors, further helping to strengthen the value of the ringgit more sustainably. Anwar added that Bank Negara Malaysia is committed to curbing excessive volatility to ensure that the ringgit's exchange market remains orderly. The multi-lane fast-flow toll lanes, or MLFF, are still being studied and trials could begin next year. Deputy Works Minister Datuk Seri Abdul Rahman Mohamad told the Dewan Rakyat that the MLFF lanes will also incorporate the RFID technology and number plate recognition system to improve efficiency.
Sebenarnya kita telah membuat kajian banyak negara dan kita nak supaya yang terbaik. Sebab itu sekarang ini dalam proses kajian. Kajian kita lakukan dan dalam masa yang sama kita akan cuba pada 2024 penggunaan tersebut secara cubaan. Kita nak melihat keadaannya lebih sesuai.
He explained that the system will utilize the automatic number plate recognition (ANPR) and the radio frequency identification (RFID) system. At present, there are 416 toll lanes across all highways in Malaysia using the RFID technology. Meanwhile, replying to another question on whether or not there may be a toll exemption in conjunction with Deepavali this Sunday, the Deputy Works Minister said the matter has not yet been discussed by the government. He added that any announcements regarding the matter would be made after receiving approval from the Finance Ministry. In Perak, police are investigating a 1.4 million ringgit jewellery heist from a vehicle parked near a goldsmith shop in Kuala Kangsar on Monday morning. District Police Chief ACP Omar Bakhtiar Yaakob said they received a report about the robbery at about 11:22 a.m. He said the victims, two gold merchants in their 30s, were robbed by several masked men armed with machetes and hammers. It was reported that the robbers smashed the victims' car windows, grabbed the valuables and then made their escape using two vehicles. The incident was also caught on camera and went viral on social media. Both victims were unhurt in the incident and authorities are on the hunt for the suspects. The case is being investigated under the Penal Code for committing armed robbery with a threat to cause grievous injury, which is liable to a maximum of 20 years in prison and whipping if convicted. In Pulau Pinang, a 19-year-old school dropout who pleaded guilty to robbing a Canadian national has been ordered to be sent to the Henry Gurney School. Sessions Court Judge Mazni Abdul Hamid ordered the teenager to be sent to the institution for 3 years or until he reaches the age of 21. The teen was charged with robbing a Canadian woman of her mobile phone, a backpack, glasses, a set of keys and a British Columbia Services card outside a restaurant on Le Bourg-Campbell on October 28th. The charge was framed under Section 392 of the Penal Code, which is punishable with imprisonment for up to 14 years, fine and whipping upon conviction. In mitigation, the accused, who was unrepresented, said he only attended primary school and was currently unemployed. He said both his parents were also unemployed and the family was being supported by his oldest brother. Meanwhile, in another sessions court, before Judge Muhammad Khalid Abdul Karim, the accused pleaded not guilty to 2 other robbery charges. On the first count, he was charged with robbing a local woman of a handbag, driving license, 400 ringgit in cash and a handphone at the back lane of Le Bourg-Campbell on October 28th. He was also charged with voluntarily causing hurt in committing a robbery on a foreign national at Batu Feringhi on October 3rd. The court allowed the teenager bail of 12,000 ringgit on both charges and set December 4th for mention. Northeast China blizzards cancel flights for school closures. News from the foreign front when we return. Welcome back. Israel's atrocities showed no sign of abating as the Zionist recent airstrikes targeted solar panel system at a building in the Al-Shifa hospital complex, causing medical services across the Gaza Strip on the brink of collapse. The Israeli warplanes also targeted 3 adjacent hospitals in the Gaza city, including an eye hospital, a psychiatric hospital and a children's hospital, with hundreds of Palestinians are feared killed and dozens others left injured. Meanwhile, it was reported that the Gaza Strip has now been divided into 2 by the Israeli army, as the southern part of Gaza is slowly turning into a large concentration camp, with Israel ordering people to move from the north to the south. Hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians are now living in makeshift shelters, grappling with an escalating humanitarian catastrophe due to critically dwindling resources, including water, food and essential medical supplies. Earlier, Palestinian Health Ministry said at least 200 Palestinians were killed in the overnight airstrikes, adding that many are still buried under the rubble. To date, over 10,000 Palestinians were killed, including 4,104 children and 2,641 women. In other news, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken wrapped up a grueling Middle East diplomatic tour on Monday in Turkey, after only limited success in efforts to forge a regional consensus on how best to ease civilian suffering in Gaza. Blinken met with Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan following a frantic weekend of travel that took him from Israel to Jordan, the occupied West Bank, Cyprus and Iraq to build support for the Biden administration's proposal for humanitarian pauses to Israel's relentless military campaign in Gaza. No talks, however, were scheduled between Blinken and President Tayyip Erdogan, who has criticized the U.S. over its unlimited support to Israel. Blinken's trip to Turkey follows on the heels of strained meetings with Arab leaders in Iraq, Palestine and Jordan over the weekend. In Japan, Tokyo residents dashed for cover inside designated shelters on Monday as part of the capital's first missile evacuation drill in years due to the country's concerns about North Korea's recent missile test launches. About 60 people took part in the drill held at 3 places in Tokyo's Nerima City. A total of 4,258 sites, including public facilities and underground structures, were marked for temporary evacuation to mitigate damage from an incoming missile. Tokyo officials urge people to seek shelter in sturdy buildings or underground facilities when the J alert system activates, with plans for more drills to educate the public on emergency procedures. Unseasonably cold weather and blizzards hit northeast China on Monday, forcing hundreds of flights to be rescheduled and closing schools as several cities issued heightened weather alerts and warned people to stay indoors. According to officials, most parts of Harbin suspended primary and secondary schools, kindergartens and off-campus training institutions as snow and freezing temperatures hit the region. 405 flights were cancelled at Harbin Taiping International Airport in the capital of Heilongjiang, with many flights also cancelled in Jilin and Liaoning provinces and in the Inner Mongolia region. The Central Meteorological Observatory said some areas could see 8 to 10 centimeters of snow and temperatures in many regions would drop sharply. Chinese weather forecasters kept orange alerts for blizzards in several areas, while China's National Meteorological Center issued an orange alert for blizzards and a blue alert for cold waves and strong wind. Now, 5 people, including 2 children, have been killed and several others injured late on Sunday after a car ploughed into a beer garden in regional Australia. The incident occurred when an SUV mounted a curb and hit patrons outside a pub in Daylesford. According to officials, 4 people died at the scene, while a girl died in hospital after being airlifted to Melbourne for treatment, while 5 other people, including an 11-month-old boy, are in hospital being treated for injuries. Police said the driver had been breath tested and had no alcohol in his system, and that police were investigating all avenues, including the possibility the driver suffered a medical incident behind the wheel. Verstappen. Formula One, the 2023 Brazil Grand Prix, Max Verstappen secured his 17th win in a record-breaking season on Sunday, resisting early pressure from Lando Norris to triumph in an accident and incident-hit Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Red Bull's three-time world champion came home 8.277 seconds ahead of McLaren's Norris on a Sunday afternoon at a packed Interlagos circuit. In a nail-biting contest for the remaining podium spots, Fernando Alonso snatched third for Aston Martin by a mere 0.053 seconds from Sergio Perez in the second Red Bull. However, seven-time champion Lewis Hamilton finished 8th for Mercedes after a race-long survival battle against degrading tyres ahead of AlphaTauri's Yuki Tsunoda. Verstappen's triumph in Sao Paulo marked his 52nd career win, lifting him one step ahead of the legendary four-time champion Alan Prost on the list of all-time winners. There are now just 2 races remaining on the 2023 F1 calendar, with the first one of those being the inaugural Las Vegas Grand Prix, which will take place from November 17th to 19th. And on to tennis, the 2023 Paris Masters, world number 1 Novak Djokovic cruised to a record-extending 7th title and became the first player to claim 40 Masters ATP 1000 titles after thrashing down Grigor Dimitrov 6-4, 6-3 in the final on Sunday. In a clash featuring the 2 oldest players in the world's top 20, the 36-year-old Djokovic drew first blood, breaking the 17th-ranked Dimitrov for a 4-3 lead in the opening set, and he closed it out comfortably in 51 minutes. Despite 32-year-old Dimitrov's effort in the second set, he couldn't prevent Djokovic from taking his 40th Masters crown. Dimitrov was again in trouble on his serve in the 5th game of the second set and was broken after a series of mistakes. Djokovic continued his momentum and won his next serve at love to open a 4-2 lead. The victory was sealed when Dimitrov sent a backhand wide, extended Djokovic's winning run to 18 matches since his Wimbledon defeat by Alcaraz in July. When Nightline returns, 1 dead after vehicle crashes into highway maintenance lorry. Illicit cigarettes have become a major problem in the country, leading to the loss of billions of ringgit in government revenue. Despite rigorous enforcement and policy measures, the prevalence of illicit cigarettes remains high. Is there more that can be done? FMT's Danish Rajareza explores potential solutions.
Malaysia has a history of coming in first place, from squash to badminton, and of course, our delicious food. But we also lead the way in another area, and it's not exactly a good thing: illicit cigarettes. It's estimated that 5 out of 10 cigarettes in Malaysia come from an illicit source, and the numbers are even higher in Sabah and Sarawak. Behind all of this are criminal syndicates who rake in an estimated 8 billion ringgit from the trade, according to a study by the Data Metrics Research and Information Center, or DARE. Meanwhile, the government suffers an estimated loss of 5 billion ringgit in uncollected taxes every year. So why is it so hard to stop the smuggling? Firdausi Sufyan from Sabah UITM says the country's borders, which are mostly surrounded by water, are a key factor.
The borders is quite porous. Well, from peninsular point of view, it's Indonesia. But for Malaysia, for Sabah, so you have Philippine cigarette. Philippine cigarette is pretty much very cheap.
Another problem is the high demand for illicit cigarettes, which are highly affordable.
The price difference between illegal and legal products contributes to the strong demand for illegal cigarettes. Illegal cigarettes are sold at approximately 6 ringgit per pack, while the legal products are sold in the market at 12 ringgit per pack.
His solution? Lowering prices.
It is time for the government to close the price gap between legal and illegal products.
Economist Barjoy Bardai believes that, in the long run, demand-side factors will be reduced.
We are slowly going to phase this out of our way of life, and people will stop smoking.
He was, of course, referring to the government's plan to table the control of smoking products for public health bill. The bill, known as the Generational Endgame Bill, seeks to ban the use, purchase, and sale of cigarettes and vape products to those born after 2007. For Firdausi, the solution lies in stricter enforcement, especially against those who buy and possess illicit cigarettes.
I think the rules is pretty much very clear already. The question is whether or not you want to enforce it, because the system is already there, right? If you smuggle, you have certain penalty.
Danish Rajareza, FMT for Nightline.
And lastly, 1 person died while 5 others were injured in an accident involving a car and a highway maintenance lorry in Hulu Selangor early on Monday. The accident occurred at around 10 a.m. at kilometre 436.8 of the North-South Expressway heading north between Rawang and Sungai Buaya. The driver of the car, identified as 33-year-old Chin Kian Hong, was pronounced dead at the scene. Meanwhile, 4 out of the 5 men riding the lorry, who were also employees of a roadworks company, were reported to be injured. According to preliminary reports, the accident occurred as the workers, consisting of 4 foreign nationals and 1 local man, aged between 22 and 57, were carrying out maintenance work on the right lane of the highway. Selangor Fire and Rescue Department Assistant Director Ahmad Mukhlis Mukhtar said upon receiving the emergency call, a team of 10 firefighters from the Bukit Sentosa Fire and Rescue Station was dispatched to the scene. Upon arrival, they found a man trapped in the driver's seat of the car, while the 5 victims travelling in the lorry had managed to escape. Firefighters successfully extricated the victim, and medical officers confirmed the man's death at the scene. The victim's body was sent to the Kuala Kubu Baru Hospital for post-mortem. The ArtX Lagos Art Fair is back with its 8th edition, focusing on the theme, The Dialogue. This theme encourages people to come together through art and discuss important issues, especially in the face of challenges in Nigeria and across Africa. With that, I'm Muhammad Hamdan. Thanks for watching and stay safe.